The waiting room was carpeted in a very neutral gray. Stark white light from 4 large fluorescent lights in the drop ceiling added an antiseptic look and feel. Large artificial plants filled the corners and provided some color. 6 functional armchairs lined one wall. They were metal with black hardware and dark gray cloth upholstery on the seats and back. 2 women sat nervously waiting for their turn to interview for the current opening. One wore jeans and a pullover top. The other a skirt and blouse outfit. A door to an inner office opened. 2 women emerged. A tall woman in slacks and white blouse said goodbye to a younger woman dressed in a business suit and heels. She said that she would notify her when the results of the test were in and schedule a second interview. The woman in the suit turned and walked out the double glass doors leading to the parking lot, not noticing the 2 waiting women. The tall woman turned toward the 2 job applicants, called out a name, and went back into the inner office. The woman in jeans followed, leaving the young woman in a skirt and blouse sitting by herself. The door closed quietly. Rhonda, the remaining applicant, wondered whether she had dressed properly. She did not own a business suit but had felt she should dress up as best she could. The counselor at the Ohio State Job Center had provided a list of potential jobs. This was the 3rd on her list. The company manufactured electronic components for the Army and had registered with the state office for an experienced bookkeeper. Rhonda was not experienced but had just completed a business school associate program in accounting and bookkeeping. Her only previous work experience was at a fast food restaurant where she had worked for the past 3 years. Fortunately, she could live at home and use all her income to pay for business school. Rhonda was hoping to get a good enough job that she could afford to move out of her mother's trailer home and into a place of her own. In a few minutes the door opened. The woman in the jeans walked straight to the exit without saying anything to the tall woman. She looked at Rhonda and said, "Good luck. You'll need it." "You must be Rhonda Evans," the tall woman said. "Follow me." Rhonda followed her into a plain office. The tall woman sat behind a desk and offered Rhonda a seat across from her. "Welcome, Rhonda. My name is Linda Thompson. I am the Personnel Director for Carson Industries. I am going to ask you some questions and then I have a short personality test for you to take. Then we shall see where we will go from there. Do you have any questions?" "Not right this minute." Ms. Thompson smiled and started the interview. "Good. First, what made you apply for our opening?" "Well, I just graduated from Northern Ohio Business School and I'm looking for an accounting or bookkeeping job with a good company," she replied as she sat back and crossed her legs while pulling her skirt toward her knees. "What do you know about Carson Industries? Do you know what we do here?" "Not really. The counselor at the State Job Center just said it was a good job match for me and my level of experience," Rhonda replied. Ms. Thompson looked at the job application Rhonda had filled out earlier. "It appears that you don't have any experience. Why do you think you can handle a bookkeeping job?" Rhonda squirmed in her seat. "I may not have experience working as a bookkeeper, but I have a good work record and I got all A's in my bookkeeping courses. I am really good with computers and can do everything you listed on the list of job requirements." "Have you ever been arrested?" Linda asked matter-of-factly. "No, never." "Do you use drugs?" "No, never." "So you are sure you could pass a drug test?" "Yes." The questioning continued for perhaps 20 minutes. Ms. Thompson made notes on the papers in front of her. Then she said, "Well, then it looks like you might be able to do the job we need. But first you have to take the short test I mentioned earlier. If you pass the test, we submit your name to a security agency for a background check. We do very sensitive government work here and all of our employees must either have a government security clearance or be qualified to get one. Do you think that will be a problem?" Ms. Thompson said as she stood up. "No, it won't be a problem," Rhonda replied adamantly. "Good, then come with me." Rhonda followed her into a small office with a table and chair. Linda gave her a booklet and a computer form and explained how to take the test and fill in the form with the pencil she provided. When Rhonda said that she understood, Linda left the room and shut the door. Rhonda spent the next half hour answering questions about how she felt about stealing, what she thought of the army going to war, and a lot of other personal questions about her feelings. When she was done, she took the book and the form to Ms. Thompson. She was taken back to the waiting room and told to sit and wait. In only a few minutes, Linda came back out and introduced her to Mr. Jeffries, the head of the facility. He had a very businesslike appearance, dressed in a gray suit and red necktie. She followed him to his office. Unlike the other offices she had been in, Mr. Jeffries' office was not plain. The wood-paneled room was furnished more like a living room in a very nice home. There were pictures on the walls, a sofa and 2 easy chairs, and a wall of bookcases. A large wood desk sat at the end of the room in front of a picture window with a scenic view of the river valley. Rhonda had never been in an office this nice. Mr. Jeffries offered Rhonda a seat on the sofa and he took a seat on one of the easy chairs. Linda Thompson sat down in the other chair. Mr. Jeffries opened the conversation. "We have reviewed your background and test results and would like to have you join our family here at Carson Industries." Rhonda was surprised. Having seen 2 other women leave abruptly, she was amazed that she would get a job offer so quickly. It was late Saturday afternoon on a cold gray northern Ohio winter day. Snow lay on the ground from 2 days earlier and it looked as if it would snow again at any time. Larry was driving on the interstate with no particular place to go. He was new in town, having left the army only 3 months ago. He had found a nice apartment not too far from his new job with a computer parts manufacturer near Cleveland that designed and manufactured computer circuit boards for Army weapons systems. Larry works on new versions of the circuits he worked on in the Army and is one of the few people in the world who can design these little circuit boards the way the Army likes them. He is making more money than he ever made in his life. He finally has the privacy, time, and money to afford one of his favorite activities, cross-dressing. Soon after moving into his new apartment, he started buying women's clothing. He bought everything: underwear, shoes, dresses, nightgowns, cosmetics, and even silicone breasts and a wig. He started cross-dressing on weekends. This Saturday was his first time out of his condo totally dressed. He had on dark slacks and a flowery blouse under a green parka. His makeup was applied very carefully and it looked very natural. No one would notice anything out of the ordinary as they passed by. His only worries were accidents or speeding tickets. Larry had the perfect transvestite profile. He loved to wear women's clothing since he was a little boy. It started when he was about 5. A neighborhood mother put him in a dress while playing with her daughter. She also polished his nails. Larry's father went through the roof when he saw him come home one day in a dress with bright red nails. From then on, Larry's mother made sure he was properly dressed as a boy when his father was around. Larry never thought about it much, but over the years, when he was about 12, he became fascinated with bras. In the winter, he used to wear one of his mother's bras under his clothing. His undershirt and flannel shirt hid it very well. At least no one ever said anything. He had visions of growing breasts, but it never happened. When puberty showed up, he would get sexually excited when he put on a bra. In fact, the first time he had an ejaculation, he was dressed up in his mother's clothes. It almost scared him. He pulled up his skirt and it shot across the room. He scrubbed the floor to clean the mess up and told his parents that the wet spot was where the dog had thrown up. During his teen years, he dated regularly but did not progress to actual sex. He still cross-dressed on occasion. After high school, he joined the Army and didn't cross-dress at all. It would have been quite embarrassing and very hard to explain. He found his present life a little lonely. In the Army, there was always somebody around, the guys in the barracks or at the enlisted club. In fact, he used to go off base on weekends to get away from everyone else. Now, he did almost everything by himself. The only place he was with other people was at work. 4 women worked up front in admin. They hung out together. 2 guys worked back with Larry in design. They were gay and spent most of their time together. 2 older men worked in the lab. They made the prototypes. Manufacturing was contracted out. So today Larry took the big step and went outside his home dressed as a woman for the first time in his life. His pulse raced. He felt very strange. The feel of pantyhose over shaved legs inside slacks was something he had never experienced. The feeling of the weight of the silicone breasts bouncing as the car went over bumps was also new and exciting. He drove around for about 2 hours and went home. When he got home, he put his coat away and headed to the bathroom where he masturbated while dreaming of his feminine body. The intense feeling at climax almost made him fall over. His knees became weak and an electric shock-like feeling went through his entire body. He cleaned himself in the toilet, flushed the evidence down the drain, and went to his bedroom and took off all his feminine clothing. Monday morning he was back at work as always. Rhonda, the youngest of the 4 women working in the front office, was attracted to Larry. As she explained to the other women, he was good-looking, almost pretty, had an excellent career ahead of him, and was the gentlest man she had ever met. She handled Larry's design paperwork and Larry had always been the perfect gentleman. Rhonda was determined to date him and find out if he was the man she was looking for. Just before lunch one day Rhonda took some papers back for Larry's signature. Instead of handing Larry the papers as she usually did, she sat down next to him on the one chair in his cubicle. Larry sat on a stool in front of a very large computer workstation. He sat a little higher and could not miss the cleavage Rhonda displayed as she sat down and crossed her legs. Rhonda made some small talk about work and then led into the real reason she was there. She asked him when he was going to ask her out for dinner. Larry was surprised. But he could not believe his good luck. Rhonda was very attractive, 5'4" tall with long brown wavy hair that rolled off her shoulders. She had an excellent figure with all the right curves. Larry suggested next Friday night and Rhonda accepted. As she stood up she rubbed against him and remarked that she had asked him because he was new in town and probably didn't know anyone. Of course, Rhonda knew the real reason. Larry was shy. He was so nervous he almost fell off his seat as she left. Rhonda went back to her desk, sat down, and casually remarked that Larry had just asked her out to dinner. The other women couldn't believe it and wanted to know all the details. Rhonda embellished the story a little and did mention that she put herself on display so that the poor guy didn't have a choice. They all laughed. Larry was so beside himself with anticipation. During the week he asked everyone he knew for the name of the best restaurant in town. He implied that he had asked her instead of the other way around. He was so happy that he didn't care if she had asked him first. During the week Rhonda and Larry made small talk whenever she brought him papers to sign. On Thursday he asked her if she had any particular restaurant she wanted to go to. She said for him to surprise her. Larry made reservations for 2 at the Chez Riva, an exclusive restaurant on the lakefront. He even stopped by and picked up a menu so he wouldn't be surprised when they arrived. Friday Rhonda stopped by his desk to see what she should wear. Should she be prepared for country western, casual, or formal? Larry told her to put on a very nice dress because he was wearing a suit. She gave him directions to her apartment and told him not to worry if someone else answers the door because she shares her apartment with another girl. After work Larry drove his car through a car wash on the way home. Then showered and even shaved even though he really only needed to shave 2 or 3 times a week. He put on the new gray suit he bought specifically for this night. He hadn't owned a suit since high school. Then he stopped by a florist on the way to Rhonda's and picked up the flowers he had ordered earlier. A very tall, thin young lady answered the door at Rhonda's. She asked if he was Larry and then she let him in and sat him down in the living room. In a few minutes Rhonda came down the stairs. She wore a short black dress, pearls, drop earrings, and high-heeled black pumps. Her hair was done in a bun in the back. Larry couldn't believe his eyes. Rhonda looked good at work but with evening makeup on and heels she was a knockout. He stood as she entered the room and nervously handed her the box of flowers. Rhonda told him that he didn't have to bring the flowers and then went into the kitchen to put them in a vase. She was back in a couple of minutes, picked up a black dress coat that was lying on the back of a living room chairs and handed it to him to help her put it on, which Larry did adeptly. He then led her to his car. The maitre d' at the restaurant seated them at a cozy table overlooking the lake. The light level was low and the setting could only be described as romantic. Rhonda was really impressed. She had never been in such a lush restaurant before. She was even more impressed when Larry helped her understand the French on the menu. She didn't know that he had studied the English version at home and had memorized almost the entire thing. Rhonda asked Larry to order for her. He ordered steak tartare for 2 and a bottle of Burgundy along with the other accoutrements. Then the chef arrived with a little cart and prepared the steak tartare right in front of her. She had only seen pictures of a chef preparing food at the table. This was a night to remember. Larry looked more and more like the man she was looking for. Dinner at the Chez Riva took the entire evening. It was almost 11 when Larry parked his car in front of Rhonda's apartment. She really liked Larry a lot and she didn't want to mess things up on the first date. So when they arrived at her door, she told him that she really enjoyed the evening and wanted to see him again. She gave him the most passionate kiss of his life and then slid through her open door and said goodnight. Inside, Rhonda stood with her back to the door and took a deep breath. Her heart was beating a mile a minute and she could still feel the chills she got from his kiss. Outside her door, Larry was elated. He had not screwed up. She wanted to see him again and she wasn't the kind of girl that went to bed on the first date. And what a kiss! He couldn't get it out of his mind as he drove home. Saturday morning, Larry called Rhonda at 10 o'clock. He didn't want to wake her, which was a good thing because Rhonda had been up till 2 in the morning telling her roommate all about Larry, the restaurant, the flowers, his manners, and on and on. Larry told her that he really enjoyed her company and wanted to see her again soon. She lied and said she was busy the rest of the weekend, but maybe next weekend they could do something. They could talk about it at work. Larry hung up the phone and looked around at his condo. He asked himself if this was the setting to bring Rhonda. His answer was no. In his main room he had a reclining chair, a large thin flat panel screen HD TV with surround sound, and one bookcase. There was no furniture in the dining room or the second bedroom. He ate his meals at a card table in the kitchen. Only the master bedroom was furnished. He had bought a bed and dresser when he moved in. Larry grabbed a copy of his condo's layout from the sales brochure and headed to the furniture stores. One store had an interior decorator as part of the staff and she sat down with Larry to help him design a living room and dining room. She included some suggestions for wall pictures and wall color. He liked the look and bought living room, dining room, and kitchen furniture. His cheap bookcase would have to go to the spare bedroom, but that was okay. He went to the home improvement warehouse to get some color samples which he brought back to show the decorator. She made a recommendation and he went and bought the paint. It took Larry all of Saturday and most of Sunday to paint the living room, dining room, and entryway. Monday morning, Larry was back at work. He bought Rhonda a small flower display he had purchased at the grocery store. He put it on her desk as he came in. She had not yet arrived, but one of the other ladies saw him place it there. All the women were jealous. Rhonda just smiled and said that she and Larry had a wonderful dinner Saturday night. Rhonda did not want to share her true feelings with people at the office. She only told them things she hoped Larry would hear. Mid-morning, Rhonda dropped by Larry's workstation. She thanked him for the flowers and stayed to talk for a few minutes. She said that she had to get back to work up front or she would get in trouble, but maybe they could go to lunch someday. She also let Larry know that he didn't have to take her to such expensive places all the time. Dinner at a regular restaurant and a movie would be just fine. And so it was that they started going to lunch most days and agreed where to go Saturday night this week. Larry's new furniture arrived during the week and he put up the window treatments recommended by the decorator. When he was finished, he stood back and looked at his new surroundings. It was like something out of a decorating catalog or home magazine. One wall was all bookcases and a credenza for the TV. There was a large sofa, matching chair, and coffee table that matched the bookcase units. The dining room had a wood table and 4 chairs. On one wall was a long wood storage cabinet with a mirror on the wall. There were 2 more chairs for the table in the corners. The extra table leaves were in the second bedroom closet. In the kitchen, the card table was replaced with a natural wood and white kitchen dinette. It all looked very expensive, and even though Larry had bought it all on sale, it still was not cheap. Saturday, Larry and Rhonda went to a neighborhood sports grill and then to a movie at the Movieplex. On the way home, Rhonda suggested they stop at Larry's. She wanted to see where he lived. Larry had hoped she would suggest the stop at his place. He wanted to ask her himself but couldn't get up the courage. He had never had a woman at his place before. He parked the car and went around to open her door, but she was already getting out. She followed him up the short walk and looked around at the neighborhood as he unlocked the door. He held it open for her to walk in first. It was very dark, only the glow from the street light illuminated the entryway. He reached to the right and flipped all the switches up with the side of his hand. Rhonda couldn't believe her eyes. The room was beautiful. All the colors went together. There was a smell of fresh paint in the air. She walked into the living room and stood behind the easy chair. She turned around, taking in the view of the kitchen and the dining room. This exceeded all her expectations. She thought to herself that she could move in tomorrow. After all, she was the one sharing the other apartment. Her name was not on the lease. Larry asked her if she liked it. Like it, she said she loved it and wanted to know how he put such a beautiful room together. Guys don't usually have such good taste. Larry didn't want to give away his secret, so he just said that he just went to a lot of furniture stores. He offered her a drink, beer or wine. Larry said that he didn't have any hard liquor. He didn't drink much. Rhonda said that some white wine would be good and bought it. Wonderful that Larry was not a heavy drinker. He was getting to look better and better all the time. Larry poured 2 glasses of white wine in newly purchased wine glasses, handing one to Rhonda and keeping the other for himself. They toasted with a simple cheers. Rhonda followed Larry to the living room where he demonstrated his magnificent high-definition TV and surround sound system. Then he put on a new wave music channel, dimmed the lights, and sat down next to her on the couch. Their lips met and her kiss was just as passionate as he remembered. She felt the same way. His kisses made her weak. She offered no resistance as his hand caressed her breasts. She was larger than he expected. His hand slid up her back and undid her bra, releasing her breasts to his warm hands. She was so excited at this point that it took all her will to stop Larry's hand as it slid up her thigh. She wanted to feel him inside her, but she was afraid that Larry would put her in the slut category, and she didn't want to lose this man. She lied and said it was the wrong time of the month. He believed her and moved his hand back to her chest. Rhonda thought about putting her hand on his penis and helping him out, but she decided that would also not be in her best interest on this night. When there was a break in the music, she took the opportunity to ask for some more wine. Larry slid his hand down and out from under her blouse and went to the kitchen to pour a second glass. While he was gone, she fastened her bra and tucked in her blouse. Larry looked at her, all neat and ready to go, and figured that he had gone too far too fast and had driven her away. Handing her the glass of wine, he looked at her sheepishly and apologized if he had gone too fast for her. Rhonda smiled and told him that everything was just fine, but now was a good time to stop. She sat up on the couch, turned sideways with one leg under the other, and told him that he was the nicest man she had ever met and she would let him know if he was going to fast or anything like that. He leaned forward to kiss her. But the way she was sitting, and it was on purpose, made it difficult to get too close. They finished their wine and Larry took Rhonda home. Rhonda had decided that Larry was a good catch and she intended to reel him in. She talked it over with her roommate and it was decided that it was time for Rhonda to spend the night. Get Larry hooked, move in and then see where it goes from there. So the following Saturday night they repeated the same scenario, dinner and a movie, then a stop at Larry's. Except this time Rhonda had packed some necessities in her purse. When the petting got hot and heavy on the sofa, Rhonda suggested they move to his bed. Larry was overjoyed. They made love 3 times before they both rolled over in exhaustion. Sunday morning Rhonda woke up with the sun shining through a slit in between the drapes. Larry was sound asleep next to her. She slipped out of bed and went to the bathroom to freshen up. She had brought a hairbrush, toothbrush, makeup, and a change of underwear. She washed her face, brushed her hair, put on her panties and bra and quietly went back to the bedroom to retrieve her clothes. When she was dressed she started to look around. She slid open the closet doors and stood there dumbfounded. Next to the men's suit and shirts were dresses. On the floor were women's shoes. She picked up one of the shoes. It was a large size. She compared it to Larry's shoes and it was the same size. Rhonda checked the dress size and it certainly was too big for her. Either Larry had a very large lady who kept her clothes in his closet or he had a secret. She suspected the latter. This was something Rhonda had not expected. Larry got up at about 10 and went straight to the bathroom. After relieving himself he wondered where Rhonda had gone. He knew she was still around because she had left her hairbrush and toothbrush on the sink. He threw some water on his face and toweled off, then went back to the bedroom. He could hear noises coming from the kitchen. He pulled on some pants and a t-shirt and walked barefoot to the kitchen. Rhonda was singing softly to herself as she cleaned out the dishwasher. She saw his reflection in the window and turned around to greet him with a cheerful, "Good morning, sleepyhead." Larry returned the greeting. Rhonda put her arms around his shoulders and gave him a good morning kiss. Then smiled and whispered that breakfast was almost ready. She sat him down, poured coffee in 2 cups and asked him if scrambled eggs and sausage were okay. Sure, he replied and sat and watched while Rhonda cooked breakfast. As she cooked she told him how much she enjoyed last night. She went on and on about the great dinner and then the loving. She told him that she hoped he wasn't upset because she spent the night. If it was a problem they could put off the loving for a while. But she emphasized how good he was in bed and complimented him in general. Larry ate it up. He had never had a young woman pay so much attention to him. And Rhonda was so good looking. He congratulated himself on his male prowess to seduce her. Rhonda served breakfast and sat down across from him. She apologized for borrowing his car and going to the store for the sausage and eggs, but he didn't have much food in the house. Larry suddenly remembered that she was right, he didn't have much food in the house. He told her that he was glad she had gone to the store and sheepishly admitted that he didn't do much grocery shopping. Then out of the blue and in a casual way she asked if he had been cross-dressing very long. Larry froze. His heart jumped to his throat. Rhonda continued. She said that she had been a snoop and saw the clothes and shoes in his closet. She asked his forgiveness. Larry wasn't sure what to say. She reached across the table, put her hand on his, and told him that she hoped her snooping wouldn't come between them. At first Larry was quiet. Then he asked her if she could keep his secret. Rhonda assured him that his secret was safe with her and suggested that maybe they should go out together as 2 girls for a girls' night out sometime. Larry said that it might be nice not being too sure how to handle the situation. Then Rhonda started talking about something else as if nothing had been said. She told Larry that she had to be back at her place that night, but she would love to take him to the grocery store after breakfast if he wanted, and offered to make dinner. Then she got up, cleared the table, and put the dishes in the dishwasher. "You know you are almost out of dishwasher detergent," she said as she closed the machine door. The rest of the day went well. They went to the grocery, then came home for some afternoon lovemaking. Rhonda topped off the afternoon by suggesting a shower together. Larry's shower was not particularly large, but they were so close together that it really didn't matter. After dinner, Larry drove her home. As he drove home by himself, he thought about the last day and how wonderful it had been. He could not believe how Rhonda had handled the concept of cross-dressing. She had hardly said anything. She certainly didn't seem to mind. She really was an amazing girl. He really felt lucky to have met her. That night, Rhonda started researching cross-dressing online. She was astounded to find that so many men secretly cross-dressed at some time in their lives. She monitored some chat rooms to see what people were saying. After only a few hours, she knew what she needed. Larry was still a great catch. She still wasn't sure how she would handle him in a dress, but that would be a small problem. Larry certainly could provide her with a safe, secure life. As part of her job, she knew what everyone at the office took home in their paycheck. Larry would have been surprised to find out that he was the highest paid person in the office. He even made more than the office manager. His skills with circuits and the software to make them work were the basis for the entire business with the Army. And he was just starting. He could pick up his college degree with his veterans benefits and move up to better and better jobs. Rhonda felt lucky to have met him. During the next 2 weeks, Rhonda and Larry continued to meet at lunch and then spend the weekends together at Larry's condo. Sunday afternoon, they lay in bed after some afternoon lovemaking. Larry was sitting with his back against the headboard, resting on a pillow. Rhonda had her arms around him and her head on his chest. She suggested that it might be easier if she moved in with him. It would be so nice to wake up together every morning. Larry agreed. In fact, he had thought about asking her to move in with him, but again, he had been too shy to ask. The next week, Rhonda and Larry moved her clothing over to his place. She didn't own any furniture where she was living. Tuesday night, they went to the furniture store to buy the long dresser, mirror, and nightstands that went with his bedroom set. Larry hadn't bought it originally because one dresser was enough for just him, but now they needed a dresser for Rhonda's clothes. It was delivered Saturday morning. Larry hung the mirror and Rhonda filled the drawers. Larry had never lived with a woman before and was surprised how many clothes Rhonda had. When Rhonda was finished putting all her things in their proper place, she suggested they go out for dinner and celebrate. Rhonda was celebrating the next step in leading Larry to the altar. She was sure that she could convince him to ask the question, or if need be, ask herself. For the present, she was very happy. Larry was celebrating having Rhonda near him every day. The companionship and the sex were new to him, and she had become very important in his life. He felt like the conquering hero. They celebrated a little too much and went straight to sleep when they got home. Sunday morning, Rhonda made breakfast as usual. Larry got up and came to the kitchen a little later. While they were finishing off scrambled eggs and toast, Rhonda casually asked Larry if he would mind letting her see him dressed as his other self. At first, Larry didn't catch her meaning. She explained that she understood most men who cross-dress have another personality that comes out when they are cross-dressed. Larry had never thought of it that way before. Rhonda explained that she had read that many very intelligent men cross-dress to experience the other person that is trapped inside. Most men even have another name they use when wearing women's clothing. This all sounded so reasonable to Larry. But he told Rhonda he had never actually given himself another name. It had only been since he moved into his condo that he had the opportunity to dress fully as a woman. He had neither the money or the opportunity before. This cross-dressing was really something new for him. When breakfast was done, Rhonda followed Larry into the master bedroom. She wanted him to shave very closely and to use a depilatory to remove the rest of his body hair. She wanted him smooth all over. After he had finished shaving, Rhonda put the depilatory all over his back and rear end. Larry put it all over the rest of his body. Then, as instructed, he waited about 10 minutes before getting in the shower. He felt very strange when he toweled himself off. Even though he had shaved his legs before, he had never taken off all his body hair. When he came out, Rhonda sent him back into the bathroom. Larry had forgotten his underarms. For this, he used his razor. While Larry was in the shower, Rhonda rummaged through Larry's feminine clothing. He really didn't have very much: a bra, small silicone breasts, 2 pair of panties, a couple of dresses, no slips, no handbags. She told Larry that they needed to go to the store before they continued. She needed to help him get some more clothing. Larry was surprised. He thought he had enough for now. She handed him a pair of ladies' cotton briefs and said for him to wait right there while she got a tape measure. Rhonda carefully measured Larry at all the right places. Then, using a catalog sizing guide, she converted all his measurements to women's clothing sizes. She had him put on a pair of his pumps to see how they fit. Not bad, she thought, and wrote down the size. Larry felt embarrassed standing in the middle of the room wearing only ladies' briefs and black pumps. Rhonda told him to get dressed in his normal clothes while she checked his makeup. As he put on his clothes, she put some foundation on his face to see how it matched. It was the wrong color. She said he needed something a little darker. They spent the rest of the morning at the mall. Rhonda dragged Larry from store to store shopping. She got him 3 new outfits, some underwear, and 2 pair of shoes. He was a little embarrassed when she made him try on the shoes. She got him a pair of running shoes and a pair of flats. He already had 2 pair of heels. They stopped at the makeup counter in the big department store. She had the saleslady apply a couple of shades of makeup to find the best shade. Again, he was embarrassed, but Rhonda gave the clerk some story about getting rid of the shine for portraits. She said she was buying the mascara and other makeup for herself. By the time they got home, Larry was excited about trying on his new clothes. So was Rhonda, but in a different way. She really didn't know how she would feel with Larry all dressed up as a woman. In one way she was repulsed, but she was also curious, and she knew it was important for her to be supportive. She wanted Larry's cross-dressing out in the open between them. It was a way for her to control his cross-dressing. It only took a few minutes for Larry to change into his new clothes. It took Rhonda longer to get his makeup done right. Then at last Larry put on his wig. Larry and Rhonda stood next to each other and looked in the big mirror over her new dresser. Larry was amazed. He really did look good. Rhonda was also amazed. He looked a lot better than she had imagined. She would not have spotted him as a man if she had seen him on the street. The girdle she bought him kept his private parts tucked away. The pleated skirt didn't show any bulge. She studied his image a minute longer and then said that there were 2 things left: his nails and jewelry. She led him into the kitchen, sat him down at the table, and started to give him a quick manicure. His nails weren't very long, but they were uneven. She shaped them and applied a coat of clear. While she was applying the polish, she asked him if he had thought of a name for himself dressed like this. He suggested Ellie. Ellie, she repeated. Why Ellie? Because my name is Lawrence Elliott. Ellie, and Ellie sounds like Ellie, he replied, smiling. She told Ellie to keep her hands off things until the polish was dry. She was going to go and change. Ellie was now dressed much nicer than she, and if they were going to go out she needed to change. Ellie hardly had time to object as Rhonda headed to the bedroom. In a few minutes Rhonda came back to the kitchen wearing a skirt and blouse outfit. She brought with her a handful of jewelry. She gave Ellie a necklace, a bracelet, and a watch to try on. The necklace and watch fit well, but the bracelet was a little tight. Rhonda asked if Ellie had ever considered getting her ears pierced. Ellie said that she had, but always chickened out when she got to the store. Rhonda asked if Ellie would still like to get her ears pierced. She said yes. Rhonda replied, "It's settled then. We'll get them done this afternoon." Ellie agreed but looked apprehensive. Rhonda handed Ellie a purse and reminded her that women always carry purses or something for money and identification. Then they put on their winter coats and headed out the door. Rhonda said that she wanted to drive and Ellie agreed, handing her the keys to Larry's car. Rhonda headed north on the interstate to the big county mall where they had been that morning. Ellie said that she was worried. She had never been out in public dressed in a skirt. Rhonda convinced her that she looked better than many women at the mall. So Ellie reluctantly walked beside Rhonda into the mall. They first headed to a store that sold inexpensive jewelry. Rhonda helped Ellie pick out a couple of bracelets and a ring. Then Rhonda led Ellie to the earring pagoda to have her ears pierced. Ellie was very apprehensive, but Rhonda cajoled her into sitting down and getting it done. In a few minutes Ellie had a gold starter stud in each ear. The clerk explained the procedure for using alcohol to clean them every day for a month before changing them. She also gave her a pamphlet on the care of pierced ears. Ellie bought 2 pair of earrings for the future. For the next 2 hours Rhonda led Ellie around the mall. They looked at clothes and shoes. Ellie was less worried about trying on women's shoes and bought 2 pair of heels. She had looked at some very high-heeled pumps, but Rhonda convinced her that she was too tall, and besides 4-inch heels are uncomfortable to walk or stand in for very long. On the way home Rhonda complimented Ellie on her first time out in public. She said that there were only 2 things left to do. First, Ellie needed to work on her voice. "There are ways to make you sound more feminine," she said. "We'll research it and I can help you," Rhonda added. The other was some different silicone breasts. Ellie would look better with a fuller chest. Rhonda suggested they order a mastectomy bra and mastectomy pads for a natural look and feel. Ellie agreed. At home Rhonda asked Ellie to stay dressed as she was until bedtime. So the 2 ate dinner dressed much nicer than usual. After dinner they watched TV, then went to bed. Rhonda insisted that Larry wash off his makeup and put on male pajamas before getting into bed. She said that she was not gay and did not want to taste lipstick when they kissed. With that they went to bed and made passionate love before falling asleep. Monday morning Rhonda made lunches for both of them. They had a quick breakfast and drove to work. Rhonda felt that her life was on track. She was living in the nicest place she had ever lived, had a very nice and loving man taking care of her, and even had someone drive her to work in a new car. She bragged to the other ladies in the office. They were happy for her and told her so. One of the ladies asked about Larry's new ear studs, and Rhonda told her that she had taken him in to get them. She also told them that she wanted Larry to let his hair grow longer. He had kept it short since leaving the army. Larry sat down to work and then realized he still had on the clear polish from the weekend. He hoped no one would notice. Mid-morning Pete, one of the gay guys, came over and complimented him on his new ear studs. Since Pete also had pierced ears, there was nothing unusual. He did ask Larry if he had gone gay, in a joking manner. Larry said that he didn't think so, Rhonda had just moved in with him. Pete said, "Hot shit, buddy. Put her there," as he held out his hand for 5. They both agreed that Rhonda was hot. Even gay guys knew hot chicks when they saw them, even if they weren't exactly what they were looking for. Larry and Rhonda had lunch together in the break room. They were a couple now and sat together. The other ladies joined them. Mostly they talked about problems at home or office gossip other than Rhonda and Larry. They all told Larry they liked his ear studs and couldn't wait for him to let his hair grow a little. Rhonda said she wanted him to have a good-sized ponytail so he looked like the other computer guys. This was the first time Larry had heard about or thought about letting his hair grow very long. He wasn't sure what to think. But a ponytail was not what he had in mind. After work Rhonda and Larry drove home together. Rhonda immediately took off her office clothes and put on loose pants, warm socks, and a sweatshirt. Larry wore jeans to work and didn't change. Rhonda turned on her favorite afternoon woman's show and sat down on the sofa with a soft drink. Larry wasn't sure what to do. He didn't want to watch what was on TV, so he put on some sweats and running shoes and went out for a jog. He often did that after work before he met Rhonda. It kept him in shape and he liked to run. Their life together fell into a consistent pattern. During the work week they drove to work together, usually had lunch together, and came home together. Rhonda watched TV while Larry went jogging. Rhonda was fixing dinner when he got back and on the table when he got out of the shower. Friday nights they went out for dinner and a movie. Saturday Rhonda went grocery shopping in the morning and they often went together to the mall in the afternoon. Once a month, Rhonda and Ellie would go somewhere together. As spring worked its way towards summer, Larry's hair got longer and longer. Rhonda took him to the same lady that did her hair to have the front trimmed so it didn't hang in his face at work. Larry told Rhonda that there was no way he was going to wear a ponytail, but a style longer than he had in the army was okay. They agreed on a layered look. With the part on one side and combed over, it looked appropriate for a guy. With the part in the middle and the front in bangs, it definitely looked feminine. On the way home, Rhonda asked why Larry didn't go to college. Larry said it was because of Bill Gates. Rhonda didn't understand. So Larry told her how Bill Gates had started college but found out that the college professors weren't teaching him anything he needed to succeed in the computer business. Why should he listen to people who were stuck in low-paying teaching jobs tell him how he was going to make his millions? Larry went on to say that he was saving money working where he was and learning about business so he could start his own business. Larry knew everyone's salary. He knew how the company was organized and how it had obtained the government contracts. Rhonda wanted to know how he knew so much. "It's easy. I accessed the company's computer system from my workstation," Larry said, smiling. "Remember, computers are what I know. I plan on going on my own in about a year." Rhonda was stunned. "I didn't want to say anything just yet. But I think you should know." "I don't know what to say," Rhonda said, sitting back in her seat. "Don't say anything, okay? It's our little secret," Larry said, looking over at her. Rhonda's mind was going a mile a minute. Larry would probably end up being a billionaire in a few years. She pictured herself as the wife of a wealthy and powerful man, her kids in private school, and maids to clean the house, a dream life. All she had to do was keep this guy happy enough to want to marry her. She got all goosebumpy thinking about the possibilities. As they drove, Larry told Rhonda about his plans. He knew a number of army buddies who were good with circuit design. He planned on putting together a team of designers with army experience and start bidding on contracts. As the business expanded, he planned on expanding into commercial contracts. He estimated that he could make $1 million a year starting in the second year. The first year would be unprofitable because of business startup costs. Rhonda listened. She said that she could run the administrative side of the business. She really did all the admin where she worked now. Larry said that there was really only one problem. His contract had a non-compete clause. He couldn't do similar work for 2 years if he quit his present job. He didn't really know what to do. Rhonda said that she thought the non-compete clause only applied if he quit and went off on his own or with a competing company. Last year, one of the guys was fired and he had a new job in a couple of weeks. No one said anything about the non-compete clause. Larry said he would check up on it when they got back. Rhonda recommended getting a lawyer to look over his contract just to make sure. Larry didn't waste any time getting a lawyer. He set up an appointment for the next week. Larry and Rhonda sat in the waiting room at the office of Paul Johnson. The room was very nicely finished in earth tones. They were sitting on a large brown leather sofa when the secretary announced that Mr. Johnson would see them now. She escorted the two into a spacious office. Paul Johnson met them as they came in, shook their hands and offered seats in front of his large desk. Larry explained the situation and what he wanted to do. Rhonda gave him copies of all Larry's personnel documents that she had surreptitiously copied. The lawyer looked through the documents. He said that it would take a few days to study them before he could make a definitive recommendation. But it looks like a typical contract designed to prevent you from doing the same work for someone else for a couple of years. These do hold up in court. It may not be such an easy thing to undo. After all, the contract was designed to prevent exactly what you want to do. But don't worry. There usually are openings. The lawyer said that he would contact Larry as soon as he had completed his review and determined a recommended course of action. Until then, he recommended Larry and Rhonda continue to go to work as usual. If it appears that you are trying to void this contract, you might have to reimburse the company for your bonus, which is most of your take-home pay. It could cost you thousands. 3 days had gone by when Paul Johnson called to set up an appointment right for after work. Larry could feel his palms sweat as the lawyer started to explain the situation. The contract was very specific about Larry leaving the company. The contract was also very specific about Larry's rights in the event he was fired by the company. His contract had 2 more years. In the event Larry was laid off, he was still due his salary until the end of the contract. The bonus money was tied to Larry's project work. So if he were laid off, he was only owed the base salary. Furthermore, he could not be laid off unless the Army terminated their contract. Even poor performance was insufficient. If he were fired for poor performance, the non-compete clause was still in effect and he would receive no money at all. The only out was if he were fired for something other than performance or the loss of the Army contract. In that instance, the company breached the contract and he would be free to do whatever he wanted, but the company would no longer to pay his salary to the end of his contract. Larry discussed the whole situation with Rhonda over dinner. She was very attentive. Her future depended on the outcome of this situation. Larry was stymied. He knew what he wanted to do but didn't know how to get around the contract. In his 2 years with Carson Industries, he didn't remember anyone ever being fired. Then Rhonda reminded him of the gay man that was fired a little over a year ago. He was pretty much openly gay and the CEO from New York fired him on the spot last year during his annual tour of the facility. Larry knew the man and that he left, but he didn't know him very well and had no idea why he was fired. The next day, Larry dropped by the cubicle where the gay guys hung out. He asked them if they knew what happened last year. He heard that someone had been fired for being gay. They broke out in laughter. He wasn't fired because he was gay, he was fired because he pissed off the company bigwigs. He had all kinds of stuff about gay pride and stuff all over his cube. The hard ass from New York about went through the roof when he saw all the stuff. But then when he got called into the office, they told him that there was a cutback and they gave him a check for 2 months' pay and let him out the door. But yes, they fired him because he was gay. That's why we don't have any of that crap in our cube and take our earrings out when the big guys come around. I didn't know. Thanks, guys. You know the annual visit is next month. I recommend you get a haircut, take your earrings off, and cut your nails before the next visit. Thanks, guys, you have made my day. Any time. At dinner, Larry explained his plan to Rhonda. It was very simple and would require her help. She would probably have to quit her job to make it work. Rhonda's heart skipped a beat when he said that. She had worked hard at school to get this job and she didn't want to give it up unless there was a very good reason. Rhonda told Larry that even though she loved him very much, he was asking her to risk everything. What if they weren't together next year? She might have a hard time finding a job as good as this one. Larry looked into her eyes and said, "If we were married you wouldn't worry as much, would you?" "Is that a proposal?" she replied, tears starting to fill her eyes. "Yes, will you marry me?" "Oh yes, yes," she said as the tears flowed down her cheeks. He told her that he had bought an engagement ring but was waiting for the right time to ask her. She hopped up on his lap and kissed him very hard. Her lips were wet from her tears. "I am the luckiest girl in the world." And she kissed him again. Larry reminded her that she couldn't tell anyone at the office or the whole thing wouldn't work. Maybe they could get married at a justice of the peace and keep it quiet. Rhonda agreed. The next day, Larry stopped by Linda Thompson's office, the human resource manager. He told her that he wanted to make an appointment with the psychiatrist. It was part of the company health plan but required the human resource manager to make the first appointment. He said needed some counseling. Linda told him she would make an appointment for him and let him know. Larry went back to his workstation and went back to work on what he was doing. A few minutes later, Bill Jeffries stopped by Larry's cube and asked if he could be of any help. Larry told him that things were fine at work. An hour later, Rhonda brought Larry an envelope from Linda Thompson. It contained the information for an appointment with a psychiatrist for the next week. After work, Larry and Rhonda went to the courthouse and applied for a marriage license. They were married over the weekend. Rhonda's dreams had come true. She had found a man that could care for her and keep her safe. She would never again have to live in a trailer and wear thrift shop clothes. Tuesday morning, Larry left the office at 10 a.m. and drove the 5 miles to see the psychiatrist. Larry explained that all his life he had really felt he was a woman in a man's body. The doctor listened, asked a few questions, and told Larry that he might be suffering from gender dysphoria. Unfortunately, that is outside the realm of his practice, but he did know a very good doctor that could help him. Larry sat as the doctor called his friend and made an appointment for Larry the very next day. Larry arrived on time to see the new doctor. Her office was in a clinic. Larry explained his feelings and she listened carefully. She explained that he was not alone, there were many people who felt the same way and there is a course of treatment. The first step was for him to accept that he might be transgendered and start living life as a woman. If he still felt the same way after about 3 months, he could start hormone treatments. If he still felt the same way after a year, he could have surgery and officially change his gender. Larry asked what he should do about work. The doctor recommended that he talk to the human resource person and tell them the situation and that he was going to present as a female at work. An appointment for 2 weeks hence was scheduled and Larry left with a very large smile on his face. When he got back to the office, he stopped by Linda Thompson's office and explained the situation. She was astonished. She had never dealt with a situation like this and she never expected an ex-soldier would feel this way. Larry went back to his workstation and continued work. In about an hour, Bill Jeffries called Larry and asked him to come to his office. Larry did as requested. Bill sat him down on the sofa and told him that his job was safe. He hoped that everything went smoothly and if there was any problem with the other employees he should let him or Linda know immediately. Larry discussed the whole day with Rhonda when he got home from work. It was decided that they should not be seen together at work anymore. Obviously, Rhonda would not want to date someone who was going to become a woman. In fact, Larry thought it would be best if he moved out and went to one of the suite hotels until the situation was settled. Larry was worried that the company might hire a private detective to watch him. Rhonda reluctantly agreed. Over the weekend, Larry moved into a small suite in a nearby suite hotel that provided long-term stays for business people. He also had his hair and nails done. He was Ellie full-time. Monday morning, Ellie was the talk of the company. Every eye was on her as she walked into the office wearing jeans and a polo shirt as always, but underneath she had breast forms, her hair was styled and her long nails were bright red, she wore makeup and her eyebrows had been thinned and arched. There was silence as her medium-heeled pumps clicked on the concrete floor of the shop. Most people were amazed at how good she looked. The office girls told Rhonda how sorry they were that Larry turned out this way. Rhonda told them that she might have to quit. She couldn't stand to see Larry like this. The gay guys dropped in to see Ellie. They invited her to the gay, lesbian, and transgender club. Ellie thanked them and said she would think about it. Just coming to work was hard for now and she wasn't sure she wanted to go out socially yet. 2 days later, Rhonda quit. She said she couldn't stand working in the same office as Ellie. Linda Thompson said she understood and offered to write an excellent referral. Rhonda thanked her and went home. For the next 2 weeks, Ellie and Rhonda met secretly every evening. Rhonda changed her mind on sex with Ellie. She knew that there was a purpose to this situation and it would end one way or the other in the near future. The future arrived bright and early on a Tuesday morning. Harold Krotzauer, the owner of the holding company that owned Carson Industries, arrived for his annual tour of his companies. Extra cleaning personnel had been at work over the weekend to make the place as clean and neat as possible. All posters and assorted stuff had been removed from every cubicle and office. Everything was at its best. Bill Jameson and Linda Thompson spent an hour with Mr. Krotzauer going over the current schedules and programs. When Mr. Krotzauer had seen enough, he wanted to tour the plant. First, he went to the admin office and met with the women who worked there. He noted that one of the women had quit recently. The ladies didn't want to say anything in particular. They just said that Rhonda needed to move on. Mr. Krotznauer, who prided himself on providing a first-rate work environment, was not satisfied. Finally, one of the women told him that the man she had been dating in the design section had decided to change sex. She couldn't stand to see him anymore and quit. Mr. Krotznauer turned to Linda Thompson and demanded to know what the hell was going on. She tried to explain that Larry had seen a specialist and was in the process of transitioning to female. Krotznauer was livid and demanded to see this person immediately. Linda told him to follow her as she led him down the hall to the design shop. Ellie was busy at work at her workstation as Mr. Krotznauer approached. She heard the footsteps of the entourage and stood up. Linda introduced Ellie to Mr. Krotznauer. "Sir, this is Ellie. She is our circuit design expert." He stood and looked her over. Ellie extended a manicured hand for him to shake. He didn't accept the offer. After a second, Ellie let her hand drop to her side and said in her best female voice, "It's so good to meet you, sir. I really thank you for what you are doing. Your health plan makes this all possible for me. I couldn't ask for more." "What are you talking about?" Krotznauer bellowed. "You are paying for my transition." "No, I'm not. You're fired. I want you out of this building as fast as your legs will carry you. I never want to see you again." Turning to Linda, "I want the health plan changed right now. I'm not going to pay for some sicko to have a sex change. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Krotznauer. I'll take care of it." Ellie picked up her purse, looked Krotznauer in the eye and said in a soft feminine voice, "You'll hear from my lawyer." And with that she sashayed down the hall and out of the building, dropping her security card at the front desk. Bill Jameson tried to explain the negative effects of firing Larry, but Krotznauer would hear nothing of it. He wanted instant termination for moral turpitude or something, anything. "If you say anything else in support of that sicko, you're going to be looking for work yourself. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Ellie was so excited as she drove home. Her heart was beating a mile a minute. She tried to call Rhonda on her cell phone but had not yet learned how to use the cell phone with her newly acquired long nails. Rhonda was sitting in the living room watching a daytime talk show program as Ellie burst in. "We did it. We did it. I got fired," she said as she hugged Rhoda, who had stood up. "We are free of them. We can start our business together," Ellie exclaimed. Ellie continued on for 2 months. Then she told her therapist that she had been wrong. Being a woman full-time was not what she had in mind. She would go back to being Larry and cross-dressing whenever he needed to feel feminine. Her therapist agreed with her and told her to come and see her if ever she had these gender feelings again. Prologue: Rhonda started a company to design circuit boards for the Army. Larry and some of his Army buddies set up the business. As a female-owned enterprise, Rhonda got extra points in bidding for government contracts. Within a year they were up and running and showing a substantial profit.